Hello, Peter. Peter
Hi,
A.
hi Lisa, how are you?
I'm very excited to be talking to you today for Writers Read for January 2022. How's your new year been going so far?
It's not too bad. It started off with a bit of a dodgy tummy, but apart from that, it's been pretty good.
Excellent.
And yeah, I've even managed to fit in a spoken word gig a couple of nights ago. So that's all good.
Oh,
So I'm
fabulous.
getting
Brilliant.
back on the train again.
It's so nice to actually be at live events as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's right. Seeing real people and not on a
Yeah,
Zoom. But
absolutely.
Zoom has been good as well. I've been involved in quite a few Zoom events over the past couple of years, and I think it's been a reasonable substitute rather than doing nothing.
Oh, absolutely. And it does mean that we've all had a bit of a peek in each other's living rooms and things like
Oh
that.
yeah,
Although I've blurred mine because mine's a
there
mess
is.
today. So,
Yeah, there is that. Well, mine's usually in a mess.
all right. Well, let's get chatting about your work. And I guess my first question for you is, what inspires you to write, Peter? What brought you to writing?
Um, well, apart from the fact that I've always been encouraged from a very early age to do creative things, although mainly sort of visual art and so on. My dad was very fond of drawing, and other people in the family are very good at singing, but I don't think I quite make that. However, I've always been interested in songs and in lyrics, and as a youngster, I used to make up my own versions of existing pop songs by changing them to my own lyrics. And I then would try to invent a tune to go with those new lyrics, but that didn't always succeed. But that's just something I used to do on my way home from school. And eventually I turned that, I suppose, into sort of amusing other people with coming up with rhyming couplets and things like that as a youngster. But I never really thought of it as anything serious. I didn't think of it as poetry. I just thought of it as enjoying myself. But when I went to secondary school, I did discover a lot of poets I really admired. And that um, since then, since teenage years, from time to time, I've gone back to poetry. And the last 5 to 6 years, I've just been doing it a whole lot more.
Any particular poet somebody that sort of you think has influenced you more than any others?
Oh, I think I was inspired at school by a whole range of writers that a lot of people will probably be well aware of. People like John Keats, um, um, T.S. Eliot, um, Shakespeare, even a lot of the very, for his sonnets, a lot of the sort of classics that you learn at school, but others like Robert Frost, Louis MacNeice, Edwin Morgan. I mean, there's a whole massive range. Ted Hughes as well. Gerard Manley Hopkins. I realise I'm mainly mentioning male writers just now. To be honest, I've discovered more female writers, female poets in recent years than in the past, including, I think everyone used to be aware of Emily Dickinson, but I wasn't. But in the last couple of years, I've become aware of her as well. Evan Boland from Ireland, Mary Oliver from Ireland. So there's I'm getting there with female poets as well.
That's great. Mary Oliver is somebody I go to a lot. Actually, I find her wild, especially her poem "Wild Geese."
Oh yes, well,
Just
he's
really,
okay.
if I
Yeah,
need to, if I need to just sort of be reflective, that's an amazing,
yeah,
amazing
yeah, absolutely.
poem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about your work. Been thinking about. So you've recently had a chapbook out or
Yeah. Wow.
coming out, and so I'd love to know more about that. And
Okay.
yeah.
The chapbook is called Art of Insomnia. That's a
Neat
copy of
cover,
it.
very nice
Yes.
cover.
Well, my the same chap who did my headshots for me for these things also helped me develop a photograph I had into a really lovely piece of art. And between him and my publisher, they managed to get it into this final form that I'm very pleased with. And so I should probably give a plug to him. His name is Mark Much O'Hare, and he's a really, really brilliant photographer. He also happens to be my nephew, which is quite handy. But he certainly was able to come up with some flattering photographs of me, which is always a good thing. Because
yes, your headshot's lovely. It's really good.
Yeah, I hate being photographed, but he made it painless.
That's great. Wonderful.
Yeah. So I'll certainly, if I may, I will read some from that. But I wonder if I might. I did make a reference to T.S. Eliot earlier, and he certainly. One of these periods that I went into of writing poetry was with a writers group, and I strongly recommend, if you can belong to a writers group or a writers class or a workshop, do it, because I find it so inspirational, which is yet another thing that inspires me to write. Actually being with other writers, and especially being in a situation for an hour or 2 hours where there's a bit of pressure on you to produce something new, and that's always good. But this back in the 80s, I went to a writers group in Bells Hill, and one of the writers' prompts was because they had to. Oh. And which could obviously lead to all sorts of things.
In my case, it would be murder mystery because they had to kill somebody.
Yes, absolutely. And this was a writers group for people writing prose as well as poetry, obviously. And we had some very imaginative people in the group who would come up, who came up with incredible stories or poems as a result of the prompt that was given. But this one, my jumping off point for it, my little sort of platform at the beginning, was The Journey of the Magi, written by T.S. Eliot, which is one of my favourite poems by him. So I think it will be seen if I read this just now. I think it will be seen that anyone who's familiar with that work will probably see the inspiration in it here. And of course, that's another answer to the question. Reading other poets and reading other writers inspires you too.
Yeah, I don't know how we can write without reading, but
yeah, I know. I think I once wrote a story a long while ago about a guy who decided he had to not read in case he ended up plagiarizing work. So the only way of making sure that his work was entirely original, in his opinion, was to always write without reading anyone else's work. But I agree with you, it's impossible. Apart from anything else, you have to see the quality of what's out there.
Absolutely, yeah, and how things changed. Right.
Oh,
well, yeah, let's hear your poem. Let's hear your poem.
Okay. Because they had to. Thus, travelling once in a caravan of camel, the privileged, seeking wisdom, are led by the stars to yet another privilege. An ancient breathing Orient Express, predestined for an unexpected birthplace, which offers infant shelter, more or less. In earlier times, a nation travels. The dispossessed seeking freedom are led from Pharaoh to another land. Much later, on a more recent day, the death camp train is not the Orient Express. Superior orders take their breath away. Climbing balconies to a bargain of bedrooms, Casanova, seeking an opening, follows his untamed serpent to another risky coupling. His orientation an irrefutable need to attempt to re-enter the warm safety of utero gestation. Climbing precipices to the treacherous beauty of snowstorms, the adventurous seeking challenge, facing cold white confrontation, begin against nature. When orienteering fails, a snowhole refuge is a place for waiting and fearing. wandering now midst a growing internation, the rejected seeking shelter through blizzards of indifference, refugees of a former humanity, denied a roof or denied a mother, disoriented, spin towards a destination in one kind of box or another.
Gosh, it's so visual, Peter. I almost, if we hadn't been on the sort of recording this, I would have wanted to just close my eyes, because I kept seeing all of the images that you were painting for me as you were speaking the words, and very moving, especially the Holocaust, the reference to the Holocaust.
Yeah. Well, again, it was just a little sort of trip through things. That also, I'm quite attached to that poem. Because it was very instrumental in helping me to win a poetry prize back in 2016 at the Paisley Spree, and that was my sort of main poem during the competition. So it's got that affection for me too.
Well, well deserved, very much.
Yes, well, thank you for that.
Now, your chapbooks also won a prize, has it not? Or
well, it was a winning submission which led to its publication.
Brilliant.
So yes, that's in that sense it's correct. It's also I'm very gratified that during 2021, my publisher put it forward as a nomination for a prize for the Michael Marks Award. Which is a very prestigious award. It didn't win. It wasn't shortlisted, and he also put forward one of the poems for a Pushcart Prize, that's 2022. So I don't know about that yet, but it's very very encouraging when your publisher thinks something you've done is worth nominating.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, that's fabulous. Yeah. Okay,
so sorry.
Well, there were two ways it was going. I was thinking we could go straight to your chapbook, but I'm also, because I know that you've also written something kind of humorous too. And I think the chapbook's taking us down the serious road. So okay. I'm wondering, should we have maybe a break of a little something lighter?
Okay, I'm not sure whether I should do this one or not. If you think not, you can always edit it out.
Oh no editing allowed.
Yes. So the it's one which, generally speaking, when I'm only going to refer to recorded to published work, because this is something that's recorded, and you'll probably be aware. If you want to submit things, they sometimes are regarded as published if they've been out in recorded form. This is one, however, I don't mind doing, although it's not published, because I doubt it'll ever be published. However, I think it's a bit of silliness, and it may well be before we go down the more serious route, that would be appropriate. So this is called, and again, this is from a writing prompt, to write something about a body or a part of a body. And mine is called Buying a Body, brackets, £79.99.
That's an interesting prompt, I have to say.
Yes. You again could probably take it down the crime route.
Definitely.
But I took it in quite a different direction. Unlikely as it sounds, it is true, I swear, you can purchase a body without seeking assistance from a modern version of Burke and Hare. On a recent visit to M&S, I discovered you can buy a body for £80 or less. A magic garment which lifts and separates these two mates that used to be pert breasts, so they won't be mistaken for scatter cushions or footrests. Tense elastic grabs your bum cheeks in a sling to reduce their size, if that's your thing. It can move your butt around, if that's your desire. A little bit lower, a whole lot higher. I cannot explain how I found myself there, wandering like an innocent amongst underwear, like Father Ted's priests lost in lingerie department nightmare. I can only confirm it is true, I swear.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, I don't know why you think that won't get published. Well,
Well,
we're published now. It's online. Is that going
yes,
out
it
there?
is. I don't think it'll ever win. I don't think it'll ever win an award.
Curious things have won awards, in my opinion.
Yes, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, I do write occasionally. Write more light-hearted, funnier stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I can chuck in another little one if you want, or I can move on to.
Oh no, chuck in another little one. Would that be
another
all right?
little one?
Indulge us.
Okay. This one isn't. Well, I was going to say it isn't quite as silly. Maybe it is. And it got published. It got published in the Wee Book of Wee Poems #3 from Dreich, who you're probably aware has been doing Dreich publishers have been doing a fantastic amount of publishing in the last year or two.
Yeah, they've been really busy.
Yeah. This one anyway is, as you know, I used the name Peter A. Just how important is the name you use as a writer? And this poem is called Leonard. Would I be more successful with Leonard in my name? It worked for Tom, the poet of Scottish language fame. It worked even more for crime writer Elmore and Mr. Cohen, a master of the writing game. So what's in a name going forward? Quite a lot's in a name, mark my word. With my new nom de plume, I'll be over the moon. Yours truly, Leonard L. Leonard.
That's brilliant. So you have the name Peter A, and I think there's a little story about that too, isn't there?
Oh, yes. I found myself 3 or 4 years ago in amongst the cool crowd, the young crowd at In Deep in Glasgow. And the host there, Sam Small, had my name on a list down as Peter A. Kelly. But when he came to introduce me, he just introduced me as Peter A. And I thought, actually, especially for this kind of younger group, yeah, that sounds a bit more like an MC or a DJ. So I'm going to stick with that. And pretty much since then, I've kept a hold of that. So yeah, so from now on, or from then on, it was Peter A.
Brilliant. Now, if people want to find you, Peter, do they type in Peter A, or do you have a website?
Again, unfortunately, I'm not cool enough to be on some of the Instagram and things like that. However, I'm on old-fashioned Facebook and on Twitter, and in both of those, it's Peter A. So brilliant. Easy to find as Peter A. I also have an occasional blog on a website which also advertises my chapbook, and it's peterawriter.com. Okay. So that's fairly easy to remember, I guess, peterawriter.com. And if anyone was interested, the only thing I have for sale at the moment is Art of Insomnia, my chapbook, and there is a page on that website, Art of Insomnia, and that's where that could be found.
Brilliant. Now, can we talk a little bit about Art of Insomnia and have you read from that as well?
Certainly, I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Art of Insomnia, in some ways, although I'm in some ways delighted I've written it, is the book I would have preferred never to have written. It relates to the 9-month period following my wife's unexpected death 2 years and 9 months ago. And it covers the various ways I dealt with or coped with or tried to cope with grief during that time. So what I'm going to do, if there's time, is read from each of the 4 sections of it. The first section deals with the immediate raw feelings following my loss of Helen, my wife. And the first, or one of the 3 poems in this section is called Helenium One and Only, with the Latin name Helenium Sui Generis. The reason it's got a Latin name is because, again, this came from a prompt idea to write a poem as if you're writing about a plant or in a seed catalogue, but for it to be about an event or a person. So this is Helenium One and Only, Helenium Sui Generis. Environmentally friendly, but with low disease immunity. Of the Helianthus hybrid, a threatened rare variety. Compared to the usual sunflower, surprisingly small, so unassuming you would not associate the two at all. Blossoms with maturity from being a wallflower to leaving lasting impressions upon all who see her. Never disappointing while growing and blooming, but when without warning there occurs an uprooting, be aware that her removal leaves a gaping hole, a space hard to fill in any way meaningful. The second section deals with a period exactly 3 months after I lost Helen, when I was finding things very difficult to deal with the people who knew all about it round about me all the time. And I felt I had to escape really from everyone's kindness for a period of time. And I went off to France for a tutored painting break for a week. And on the night I arrived there, I found myself having this conversation, which I then put down, which I then typed down, trying to convince Helen that maybe she wasn't missing things as much as perhaps I was missing her. This is called Found in France. Though you would have to concede its picture-perfect rural beauty, here for the record are the things you wouldn't like about the place. The middle of the countryside, such a distance from anywhere, the crowded transport transferring from the airport, the open windows to keep the place cool, inviting houseflies, the doorway dogs, the ever-darting, omnipresent lizards, the lack of television, the steps useful for others which would be impossible for you. Around those steps, the lavender, which at home would aid your sleeping, but here for you a nightmare attracting wasps and bees. The spider's improbably small body, impossibly spindly long legs, waiting in the shower room, patiently. Also the tiny white spider. I bet you never saw an entirely white spider. The mosquitoes, the hornets, the blood-sucking horseflies, almost certainly lining up to feast upon you in particular. The bats, awaiting the chance to be entangled in your lush long hair. The swimming pool that would be out of bounds for you, the conversation in which you would not wish to speak. The revelation before bedtime concerning the cleaner's cat, its trophy mice, and the minor flea infestation. Successfully eradicated, we think, but let us know if you get bitten. As for me, the only aspect of the French place I do not appreciate is you not being here.
Oh. So beautifully written. I love again, so visual, all of the small things, the tiny white spider, and just that very intimate conversation that you're having with her.
Well, thank you. Because one of the things that has helped a little bit is trying to balance the Helen's absence with the fact that I also kind of also feel an intimacy or a presence as well, and I think that helps. If you felt there was just no further contact, it would make it even worse than it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, section 3 of the chapbook deals with the situation when you have to return from this escape, and really everything is still there and you still don't quite know who you are or what you are or how you should behave. And this one is called Acting Though. Though dramatic tears may have been expected, the waiting audience was left disappointed. Though in moments still quiet teardrops spill, not the cataracts which mark out other acts. Though in private scream and often ask just why I struck my time on stage barely moist of eye. Thus do I act strong when I lack all kinds of strength. Thus do I make sense when nothing at all makes sense. Yes, I know. Acting though. And the final section of the chapter, this is a really short one from the final section, which is headed Insomnia. So there's the art part and there's finally the insomnia part. Background noises. Everything sounds different in the dark. The crumple of a plastic bag given life, drips of water, the paw steps of small creatures. I can almost hear you giggling in the night.
Peter, you've almost brought tears to my eyes, actually, because I know the subject matter in terms of, this is about your loss of somebody you loved so deeply and continue to love. But just the way you write, your words are so evocative, beautiful. So I really want to thank you for coming on Writers Read, and I'm sure that people who watch this will be moved, very much moved, and be really interested to find out more about what you have done and what you will be going on to do in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure to be here.